Greetings, folks. Iolair here. Today is Tuesday, September 1st, and Wargaming has made a major announcement on the World of Warships development blog. They are working on a complete overhaul of the Commander skill system to the extent that we haven't seen since update 060 back in at the beginning of 2017. So the current skill structure that we have today has been in place for over 3.5 years. Now, Wargaming intends to release these changes in update 0911, which would be the last update of this year. But keep in mind that all of this content is preliminary, or all the information is preliminary. Everything's subject to change, and much of it, I assume, will change, even potentially the release. Now, I'm going to break up my review into at least two videos. This first one that you're watching now, I'll go through this article as completely and concisely as I can. And then I'll have to have at least one other video to go over the skills themselves. The skill trees are being broken out by class, and so it may be that each class will deserve its own video, so we'll have to see how that goes. So in summary, we will see new skills, and some of the old ones are going to be changed. And by change, that could mean that the skill will remain, but its characteristics will be different. Or in other cases, we're going to see skills that are going to get removed, and their capabilities or their characteristics are going to get spread across other skills, either new or existing. Each class will have its own separate skill section with, quote, unique skills. So some of the skills are definitely going to be unique by class. Other skills are going to be quite common for each tree, like preventative maintenance, priority target, adrenaline rush, things like that are very commonly taken across most or all of the classes. But the bottom line is that each class will have its own tree of skills. The maximum number of skill points that a commander can get to will be increased from 19 to 21. I assume Wargaming will have some new titles or ranks to go along with that, like, Fleet Commander of the Universe or something like that. But we'll have to see. I'm sure Wargaming will come up with something. There will be a new way to get Elite Commander XP by dismissing unused commanders. And then the amount of experience required to retrain a commander on another researchable ship will be reduced by half. So assigning a commander to a premium or special ship, that doesn't change. They don't lose, they don't have any retraining requirements, and they don't lose the effect of their skills. But if you change the commander, the researchable ship that they're assigned to, the research or the experience requirement will be cut in half. All right. They say here, if and when the changes come to the live server. So I read a little bit of hesitancy in whether these changes are going to get rolled out. But I think Wargaming is just being prudent in saying that, they know this is big, and these changes, are definitely subject to change, or this content is subject to change. They are saying that everyone will have an opportunity to reset their commander skill sets for free. That makes sense and is fair. Details of the program will be released at a later date. Again, that makes sense. That this is just all preliminary at this point. Skills that exist in the game will be adapted to the new system as comfortably as possible, or as comfortable a way as possible. So if I remember correctly, when we got 060, all of our commanders got reset. In fact, we had a couple of updates where we were able to do resets of commanders for free. But I think in 060, they actually deliberately reset all of our commanders. So when we first logged in under 060, none of our commanders had any skills. In this case, it looks like they're trying to make sure that the commanders at least have a viable set of skills that map as closely as possible to what they had under the current system. And I can see why they would want to do this, because you don't want to punish players who are just maybe play more casually or don't want to dig into all the details. And really, to be a good steward as a developer, you want to try to make the transition as easy as you can, and you want to be able to allow players to get in there and play as early and quickly as they can. So I think having a method to do that mapping automatically for them would be very useful. Now, I think in some cases skill transition will be obvious, but in other cases they will be less obvious, and Wargaming will have to come up with some sort of mapping, and I'm sure that they will roll out details about that. All right, main changes. The first couple of paragraphs here basically summarize the motivation behind this. Again, we haven't seen changes for well over 3.5 years, or at least big structural changes. That in itself isn't necessarily good motivation if the structure is working. But what they are trying to do is they're trying to make the variety and characteristics of the skilled more varied, so that people make more conscious and a wider variety of choices to work with in terms of their builds. Because what we have today with a lot of ships is that you tend to have very static build structures where, the core 4 to 6 set of skills are basically common across a particular class, and then maybe only 1 to 3 skills vary a little bit between players depending upon their preferences or the characteristics of the ship. So I think Wargaming is looking to try to make the environment richer with regard to options. And you can argue whether that's a good or a bad thing for the player community or for the playing community, but that is the motivation behind this. Now, in the new system, each commander will have an opportunity to distribute skills for each class separately. So again, I mentioned here that there are trees for each class, and a commander will have the ability to deploy their skill points across each class. And the example that they will give later on is that if you have a commander, let's say, that has 10 skill points, you can allocate 10 skill points to the battleship tree, 10 skill points to the destroyer tree, 10 skills each to the cruiser and the carrier tree as well. So you will actually be able to develop commanders that have capabilities across all of the classes. And frankly, this might be a great addition for players that have, like, let's say, a lot of premium ships in a particular nation. If they have a high point commander, they could make that commander very capable across all of the classes and simply move the commander around to whichever premiums they wanted to play. And, provided that the ship in question doesn't really need a specialized build, you could have a single commander be the primary commander for a lot of premiums and have them be effective on all of those premiums. And one of the commanders I immediately think of is Günther Lütjens, which is the historical commander for the Germans, since he has a lot of talents and skills that are really tuned to all of the classes. So he would seem to be a prime fit for this capability. So I think this addition is quite exciting and quite interesting. They mentioned that they've also significantly changed and reshuffled the skills themselves. They've added new ones and they've removed old ones. They've also mentioned here that there's, they're going to have some logical organization to these structures. Since we don't have anything visual to go on in terms of a UI, we'll just have to kind of take Wargaming at its word that this is going to be quite relatively intuitive and well organized to be able to see how to choose your skills. They also mentioned here the idea is to provide several choices and options rather than having sort of one ultimate skill. And again, I think this is to get players to step away from sort of the very static build choices that the community tends to go with a lot of ships. All right. They also, again, they mentioned that the maximum number of skills for a commander is being increased from 19 to 21. There's no statement in here as far as the experience required to get to the 21st point. So I don't know whether it's the 1.7 million to go from 0 to 19 as well, which includes the 300,000 to go from 18 to 19, and then suddenly to get to 20 and 21 is another million in experience. There's nothing in here that explains what might be going on from that perspective. Hopefully Wargaming will scale things a little better. Maybe it's still more than 1.7 million to get to 21 points, but it isn't like this really egregious grind to get up to that level beyond what we see today for 19. So we'll have to see how that goes. And again, I mentioned here that the distribution of skills by categories will be more logical. And again, this goes back to the usability of the feature itself in the game. So we'll have to see how that works out. All right, the next update or the next detail to me is quite significant. And frankly, I also have some misgivings about. So there will be a method for us to get Elite Commander XP by dismissing commanders that we're not using. However, to get the Elite Commander XP, we either have to spend credits or doubloons. And even when we do that, we do not get all of the experience back as Elite Commander XP. So I'm assuming that there will still be a way that we can always dismiss commanders without any cost, and we just don't get any benefit from dismissing the commander. But in order to dismiss a commander to get experience points, we have two choices. We can either spend 10 credits per experience to get 25% of that experience as Elite Commander XP. So when I read one experience, I don't read that to mean one skill point. I read that to mean one commander experience point. So for example, a 10-point commander is roughly 100,000 experience altogether to get to 10 points. So it would mean that if you had a 10-point commander that had roughly 100,000 experience points, it would cost 1,000,000 credits to dismiss the commander, and even then they would only get 25% back as Elite Commander XP, or 25,000 commander experience points. So that's doesn't feel like a very good exchange. Now you can get a better boost by spending doubloons. You will get, for every doubloon, you will get 150 experience, and you will recover 50% of that as Elite Commander XP. So again, if you have a commander with, let's say, 150,000 experience points, just to make the math easy, it's going to cost you 1,000 doubloons, but you're only going to get 75,000 Elite Commander XP back as a return, if I'm doing the math correctly here. So I don't know. It doesn't feel like this is a very scalable or very equitable choice to make. Maybe I'm wrong, and certainly again this is all subject to change. So hopefully I didn't misinterpret this in terms of the math. So yeah, I said 150,000 experience, one doubloon for every 150. That would be 1,000 doubloons, and then you get some 50% back. So 50% of 150,000, yeah, it's 75,000. So yeah, it just doesn't strike me as really scaling very well, but maybe I'm wrong. All right. I also suspect, I'm also wondering whether Wargaming is using this as a method for folks to be able to dismiss commanders, earn Elite Commander XP that they can then apply to push, their 19-point commanders to 21. Although, given the amount of experience I suspect that we'll need to get from 19 to 21, will probably be fairly steep. I'm not sure how scalable it will be to do this conversion by dismissing commanders. But again, we'll have to see how that works out. All right, several other details about this that I'm going to go through here. Commanders will still have a specialization for a particular ship. So you have a commander assigned to a ship. That assignment doesn't change. That's the same as we have today. Only one skill set corresponding to a class of ship is active at one time. That means that if you have a commander with skills deployed across all these classes, the only skills that are in effect for the commander is based on the ship that they're actually assigned to at the time. And again, I think that makes sense. And then this point here is that the skills for each class are distributed independently from each other. And this is the example I gave earlier. You could have a 10-point commander. You can then assign 10 points to battleship skills, 10 points to destroyer skills, cruiser skills, and carrier skills all simultaneously. The basis, or the basics, I should say, of the skills aren't changing. There's going to be 4 levels of skills. Each skill costs 1 point per level. And in order to research a skill of a particular level, you have to have at least one skill from the prior level already researched. So again, this is the same as we have today. Let's see. The cost and number of skill points for recruited commanders will change as well. So today, when we recruit new commanders, we have three options. We can either recruit a commander with no skill points for free. We can recruit a commander with 1 skill point for 7,500 credits, or we can recruit a 3-point commander for 25 doubloons. What we will now be able to do is, again, still get a commander for free that has no skill points, or we can get a commander with 6 skill points for 900,000 credits, or we can get a commander with 10 skill points for 1,750 doubloons. So, the same principle, but now we can buy commanders or starting commanders, I should say, with a higher cost. Let's see. To redistribute skills as before, Elite Commander experience or doubloons will be required. Each skill set is redistributed separately. So what this would mean is that if, for example, you had a 21-point commander and they had 21 points allocated each to the 4 classes across the skill tree. It will, to reset the skills for a particular class, you do that independently. But it also means, I think, that in order to reset for all of the lines, you're basically doing 4 resets and the expenditures associated with that. So that's pretty steep. And then on that point, the cost of redistributing for a section. So I guess I want to stress here that this is for each class. With a commander of 21 skill points will be 525 doubloons. So that's consistent with what we have today. So if you respec a 19-point commander or any point commander, it's 25 doubloons per point that you're respecing. Or you can spend 500,000 elite commander experience to respec the commander for that, the 21-point commander for that section. Now that's a significant inflation. So today, for all the way up through a level 19 commander or 19-point commander, it's 10,000 elite commander XP per point. So to fully reset a 19-point commander is 190,000 elite commander XP. What they're saying here is that for a 21-point skill commander, it's going to cost 500,000 elite commander XP. So I really read here that Wargaming is trying to, discourage folks from doing resets certainly on these upper point commanders. Now they're saying for 19-point skills, the cost will remain unchanged. So it doesn't say what it would be for a 20-point commander, but definitely some inflation that's going on here. And clearly Wargaming, I think, is trying to discourage us from doing resets. Now the next point here is also significant. A commander with no specialization for a specific ship cannot be assigned to it without retraining. So the way I interpret this means that today, when you assign a commander to a ship, a researchable ship, and you don't do anything to accelerate, researching that ship, you pay a penalty, if you will, in terms of experience to retrain that ship, retrain on that ship. It looks like that option no longer exists. You have to explicitly and immediately retrain the commander either by spending doubloons or elite commander XP. So that to me is potentially a pretty big deal. Again, they've reemphasized here that this rule doesn't apply when you assign a ship, apply a commander, to a premium or a special ship. So again, that makes sense. Now, the next point is actually quite interesting. You can go into battle on a ship without having a commander. So today, when you have an early account, a fresh account, you don't immediately have access to commanders, and you have to get up to a certain account level, I forgot what it is, to be able to start using commanders. But prior to that, you're playing your ships without a commander. They're now extending this capability to all players, it looks like, or to all accounts, that you can play any ship without a commander. And they're saying in that case, basically, you're not going to earn any commander experience, which makes sense. The only place where I can see that this might be really useful, and maybe there's others than this one that I'm thinking of, is in these events where we have the snowflake event or some other event where, we basically just want to go into co-op, get a free or an easy win and earn some sort of reward. And we may have a variety of ships that we just don't have commanders for. And we simply, we just want to play this ship and we don't want to bother getting a commander and assigning him to the ship, et cetera, et cetera. So it seems like we now have that flexibility. Maybe there are some other cases where being able to play a ship without a commander is useful. This might be a little bit of a gag capability for for streamers out there that says, that their followers say, hey, go play for your next game, go play the Minotaur without a commander and see how that works out, or something along those lines. We'll have to see. I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting concept. All right. The amount of experience required to retrain a commander to another researchable ship will be cut in half. That was mentioned at the beginning. And it says skills will not work until the commander completes retraining. Now, this struck me as slightly contradictory to the point earlier. It says a commander with no specialization for a specific ship cannot be assigned to it without retraining. So there may be a nuance here that I'm missing, but I had interpreted this to mean you can't just assign a commander to a ship and not retrain immediately. You have to retrain. But this point here suggests that um, the skills will not work until you complete retraining. I mean, maybe these things are saying the same thing, but this earlier comment definitely implies you can't even do the assignment without doing the retraining. So again, maybe I'm missing something here, and Wargaming will clarify, or somebody in the audience can help get me straightened out on that point. All right, the last item here is also quite significant. The cost of commander retraining is changing. The redistribution of commander skills will be much less, because it will be much less often, or at least that's how Wargaming is pitching. A side effect of this whole effort is that there will be less need to be able to respec commanders. The cost of retraining in doubloons will increase from 500 to 750. And then on top of that, we can no longer undergo retraining using credits. So today, if you assign a commander to a ship and you want to use doubloons, it costs 500 doubloons to retrain the commander immediately on that ship. You also have the option of spending 200,000 credits to complete half of the retraining, and then you can use Elite Commander XP or Free XP to complete the retraining. And no longer are we going to be able to use credits, or at least based on under the current proposal. So that's kind of a big deal as well. And then, as I mentioned, there's a link here to a spreadsheet that covers all of the skills that are being proposed. I do have a quick screenshot of what that looks like. It's basically just a spreadsheet. And like I said, this deserves its own video. I'm already, more than 20 minutes into this review, which is longer than I usually like to do, but this is a big important topic. So I will save a review of the commander skills for a little bit later. I've read through them a little bit. I need to do more reading to get up to speed to make sure that I cover things as concisely and accurately as I can. But for this video, a very important announcement from Wargaming about intentions to overhaul the commander skill system. So again, I apologize for the long video. If you stayed on this long, thank you very much for sticking with me. I hope you found the information here useful and interesting. If you did have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them or offer an educated guess, or if necessary, try to get us to another resource that can answer them. And I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up. Thanks much as always. We hope to see you out there in the virtual seas, and we wish you happy sailing.